and gentlemen, and welcome to the Negotiators here. And as you can see, you got a glimpse of who's on set with us tonight. And I would just like to mention that we have a very diverse cast. We have the reigning champion, the first time somebody has won in the Negotiators since Paul Farias Sr., and we have the runner-up, both to my left and to my right, respectively. Now, without further ado, I would love to get started here on the Negotiators tonight. A lot of hot topics to talk about, a lot of things going on in the sports world. So let's introduce to you the Negotiators cast for tonight. To my left, we have the first-time negotiatee, Megan Kirby, followed by reigning champion, David. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing all right.
Doing good. Yep.
Awesome. Now, to my right, we'll take it to Team 1 with the runner-up, Brett Souza, and new member, new negotiatee, Steve McLovin Atkinson. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Seeking revenge.
All right, here we go. Well, it's funny you should say that, Brett, because that is going to amp up the intensity of this show. Now, you want to talk about seeking revenge. Let's not forget about one specific monumental collapse, similar to Brett Souza last week, by a fellow Boston sports team, the Boston Red Sox, going 7-20 in the month of September with over 100 wins in the horizon. We touched upon the Boston Red Sox last week. Team to my left. We'll start with you guys. What is it looking like this year, based on several comments that Bobby Valentine made? What is the 2012 outlook for the Boston Red Sox?
Well, I'm really looking at it this way. You see, with Bobby Valentine, he's definitely going to bring in a different regime than what Terry Francona did. I really don't think he's going to be as, I don't know if coddling's the right sense of the word, but there was a lot of sense around the Red Sox locker room that Terry Francona was really a over-the-top players manager for the Red Sox, and that he really never called out his players. I think Bobby Valentine won't think twice about doing that to the Red Sox players if they have difficulties this year.
Meg, anything? Your first statement here on the Negotiators.
I just think really that the Red Sox need to open up their eyes this year and try to aim for getting the World Series and start off with a winning season. Really, that's
so you
all.
guys are saying that we've been aiming too low, because there's been a lot of talks about the New England Patriots, and now we get so disappointed when they don't make it to the Super Bowl. Our expectation is that they make it to the Super Bowl every year. Do you think that expectation has been a little lax when it comes to the Boston Red Sox?
Definitely.
Really? Now, David made a good point, and he touched upon Bobby Valentine not being concerned at all with going to dog his players. Terry Francona was, in fact, the players' manager, but it won him 2 World Series. So you got to think, was Terry Francona's managerial swagger what cost the Red Sox a run at the playoffs? Was Terry Francona's management the issue?
I don't believe it was. I think it was just the collapse of the team in general, and all those issues in the clubhouse, I think, came full circle from throughout the entire season and just hit them in September when they really needed to do better.
McLovin, anything from you?
Yeah, I think they could have played better. I think that Bobby Valentine's going to approach with the Patriots. He's going to kind of have
Really?
the Bill Belichick kind of thing. That's what I think.
But he's known for being robust. I mean, what do you have to say?
I still think that even new manager and everything, is he going to be able to get the players to play for him? I think the Red Sox are still teetering on train wreck here, and they could be a contending team, don't get me wrong, but they also could be a complete train wreck and finish in 3rd place in the AL East as far as I'm concerned.
The thing that concerns me about your Bill Belichick point was that Bobby Valentine and Josh Beckett had a conversation not too long ago, and Josh Beckett told him that he wanted the details of the conversation to be kept down low, essentially. Bobby Valentine, the very next day, goes and tells the media everything that happens in the conversation. Something that Terry Francona doesn't necessarily do. I think, like you said, Brett, this is a team that just fell off the face of the earth and now dealing with another personality somebody that they can't necessarily trust just
After,
yet.
yes, after last year's collapse and everything new surrounding this season, they're still teetering on train wreck, I believe.
So,
I didn't say they couldn't be a contending team, but I said if handled improperly, then it could be a bad season for the Red Sox.
any last thoughts on the Boston Red Sox?
Well, I think one thing going back on Terry Francona was that his style was the right way to do it when they won those World Series. They had leaders on this team. They had veteran presence. Last year, really, the veterans were Lester, Beckett. And the way that Francona was styling his managerial style was that he was going to let the players really take more liberties than what most teams would have done. And Valentine's going to cut it. It seems like he's going to cut a bit against that. But I think the one major factor in why this probably won't happen again is that Lester, Beckett, and most of these guys who were scapegoated, not really scapegoated, but brought to this bad of a light after September. I think they were embarrassed and they want to kind of reclaim that a sense of worth for this team and to their fans and the franchise.
They gotta care. I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing is that this Boston Red Sox team, you go throughout the years, the centuries, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, the one thing that right now, if I was a Red Sox fan, I would worry about was Beckett's still kind of not owning up to it yet.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going, well, if it shouldn't have gone out in the first place, instead of saying, we made a mistake, we need to fix this. And he's still kind of putting the blame on the media of how this got out rather than putting blame on himself for having this happen.
I think Francona, everybody blames Francona for not being a leader, but in the end, they're all adults, and they know the proper way to act at different times in different situations. Exactly, like going into the clubhouse and drinking beer or eating chicken like came out in media reports, that's not really appropriate for adults who play in the major leagues.
Yeah, I think when you look at it on the other side, Francona knew he lost his team in early September. He knew this was happening, and this isn't something that just happened in September. This was all year long, and he figured that if you look at it this way, there is a code of ethics in a Major League Baseball locker room that what stays in the locker room should stay there. What goes on there stays there. And I think Francona took that a little too much to heart. He never was willing to call it aim his players for doing this.
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we start off the show here on kind of a sad note here, talking about the Red Sox, despite the fact that spring training is in fact here, and the spring of a new season is also in fact here. But it seems as though, with all the excitement and all the intensity and all the success of Boston sports teams, a few of them seem to be on the decline. One more, namely the Boston Celtics, who dropped their 5th straight game last night to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, granted, the Oklahoma City Thunder are a legitimate team. But can you afford to lose like that? Team 1, we'll start with you. What's going on with the Celtics? Please tell me.
We talked about them a few weeks ago being playoff contenders, how they could make a run, and they've lost. What have they done to us since they've lost 5 straight? And
They won 2 games.
They won 2 games and then they lost 5. You cannot give up 74 points and a half to any team. I don't care if it's the all-world team, all-US.
Especially
do not
if
care.
you're the number 1 ranked.
Yeah, defense. Yeah, that makes it even. The Celtics, I believe, are in grave trouble. I think that this is the time Danny Ainge starts to go in his head, starts to think about whether he gets rid of all his players while he still can, while there might be some value for them,
All
because
the
not Rondo, not Bass. I'm talking about your Kevin Garnett's and Ray Allen's. Does he try to get rid of them while they're still worth maybe something?
What value can this have? Because you thought that after this team was not that competitive last year. Can we agree on that? I think we can agree that it was not that competitive. You would think that Danny Ainge turns around and says, hey, we just won 24 games in a season. Let me go out and get the big 3. Well, all of a sudden, now you're a contender. Well, now we're not living up to our expectations. Let us go out and be a contender again. And it feels like he didn't really do that.
Well, like Danny Ainge said when he first put that team together, he knew it was going to be for a few seasons of greatness, maybe a few championships. And now it's getting to that point where that's run out, and he's trying to milk it as much as he can. He's milked it too much, I think.
Out of it? You're not going to milk a championship
exactly.
out of a team like
this.
He's similar to the New England Patriots,
Yeah.
where you have the Sterling Moores of the world rebuilding as you win. And I just don't see that from the Boston Celtics, McLovin, anything at all.
Yeah, they're an old team. They
they can't win?
They can still win, but I think they're an old bunch. Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. They have a lot of road games, I think, after the All-Star break.
They have a ton of road
15,
games. after the All-Star
17
break.
going into the All-Star break. You know, I was listening today, and they was thinking about trading Paul Pierce and getting somebody else, a younger player or something, at the end of the year.
Seem that a trade with Paul Pierce, that's almost like a desperate move to win now, even though they know that they have to rebuild.
Well, I think in the Celtics case, like a lot of teams have some old players that fade out, and then the new players come up. With the Celtics, everybody's old. Most of the players the majority of the
Right.
players are old, and there's nobody to replace them. Like in a team that runs well and smoothly, you'll have a few veterans retire, then the good prospects come up and fill their spots. With the Celtics, there's nobody to fill the spots of a half of the roster being very old and on the decline in their career.
Struggling. What do you guys have to say about this over here?
I mean, yeah, they lost 5 straight, but you got to look at it just not outside the headlines. Let's face it, Rondo was out the last 2 games.
So is this a case of it not being as bad as it seems?
It's not. I fully believe it's not as bad as it seems. I mean, are they if fully healthy against the NBA's best right now? Do I think they can win a championship? No. Do I think they need a lot of help? Yeah, and they could get that help. But right now, let's face it, Brandon Bass is hurt. He's your 6th man off the bench. He is really your minutes guy off the bench, who can basically fill in for Jermaine O'Neal, who's also hurt right now, and Garnett. I mean, if Garnett's playing the center position, you're not going to win on this team. You're just way too small as a team, because then Pierce moves to the power forward, and he's too small to be a power forward.
The Celtics get out-rebounded every game.
Yeah,
Is
that's the biggest issue.
It
But I mean, Rondo was out for the. What I think did show something though, is that they did come back and made a rather close
they
game
made
at
it
the end. With about 3 minutes to go, they were only down by 6 points.
Right.
encouraging.
That is encouraging. I mean, but right now the Celtics can't win if their bench players are playing as starters.
Right.
Their depth goes away once that happens.
Well, the last few years, if you notice, the Celtics would get up big in games early and blow huge leads. This year, they're giving up huge leads and trying to play from behind,
Right.
and it just really isn't working for them when they play. When you get down, they play horrible in the first half. There was a few games in the first half where they didn't get out of the 20s in points.
OKC
Well, I mean-
goes on a 31 to 30
Well, I think
run,
that
stopping.
when you look at yesterday's game, I think it's more of an indictment on OKC right now. Right now, they had a chance to stomp on the Celtics' throats last night and win big, like by at least 40 points, and they kind of just stopped. Halfway through the fourth quarter, they stopped and allowed the Celtics to get back in that game. And then Durant hits a big shot to extend the lead, and then the Celtics can't come back from that.
Well, you got to remember, Durant picked up 4 fouls right when the Celtics made a run and came back in their points. So Durant was out of the game. Oklahoma City's best player was out of the game when the Celtics made their run to come back from all those points down.
Well, Meg, I mean, let's put it to you this way. You know, I like to make the references back to football just because there's so many good things about it in terms of, you look at last year's 10-6 Green Bay Packers teams who won the Super Bowl. They lost 13 players to injury, including a Jermichael Finley, including a Ryan Grant, and they won the Super Bowl, right? Is there a formula now, especially in the NBA, that a winner has to fit? Is there a mold to a winner? Like, the Celtics don't have any depth.
That's the thing. You need depth in every team. Every sport needs depth. If you don't have anyone on the bench to back up your player that's hurt or starting, you have nothing.
But shouldn't they be good enough to win even when guys like Bass go down? Because no team is going to stay 100% healthy. No team is going to stay 100%
Exactly.
healthy.
But they need the people on the bench to be as good as the people they have starting that are possibly getting hurt. Because if they're not good, you're not going to win a game.
I think
does any team have that?
I think
You need depth no matter what in
you
every
do-
sport.
I'll agree with that. You definitely need depth in any sport, and especially basketball, because injuries happen all the time. But also, you need to have balanced offense, balanced scoring. Like the Thunder, great team, but you know what might come back to hurt them? The fact that Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant score 3/4 of the
Everything.
points.
Yep.
I mean, you look at it in the past couple of years in the NBA, Phoenix Suns, Denver Nuggets were the highest scoring teams in the league. The problem was they were getting about the same amount of points as they were scoring. So, I mean, right now, if you really think about a defense that really can stop at a good offense, sort of the Dallas Mavericks of last year, is really the formula you need to win a championship.
I mean, yeah, it's great the Thunder scored 119 points last night, but did they really play good defense, allowing over 100 points to a Celtics team who does not put up great offensive numbers in any aspect of the conversation?
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our opening word from our negotiators. When we return, sparks are going to start flying as the two teams will compete for points. We'll see in short time who gets the boot, but in the meantime, stick around. We got a lot of good stuff coming here on the Negotiators, the Ray and Ham channel, live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Negotiators. Here to my right, I have Team 1. And here to my right, I have Team 2. Now, we're going to keep things rolling. We're going to keep the ball rolling here with the NBA. And it just so happens that the All-Star game is right around the corner, and Rondo is now on the All-Star team. The Boston Celtics, lo and behold, have 2 All-Stars. Guys, for a 15 and 17 team, is 2 All-Stars an overachievement, or are they where they should be? Team 1, Team 2, we'll start with you.
Well, in all honesty, I would prefer to see none of them in the All-Star game.
Not even Paul Pierce?
Well, yeah, well, here's the thing. In this very condensed schedule, I'd rather have rest than have them basically running around Orlando and going to Disney World and doing all the stuff that the All-Star game entails. So, I mean, Kevin Garnett, when he got this, I guess you could say, a snub, he basically was like, yeah, I would love to have the rest, especially in this season that we're playing basically games almost every night.
Right.
So, I mean, it is an overachievement. No, the NBA, every All-Star game tries to put their superstars in there. Name recognition is more than anything else.
But doesn't this go to show that the Boston Celtics have no superstars? Nobody. Isn't that what you get out of this? Like, they're underachieving.
Yeah, and you think about the NBA, Yao Ming, even when he was hurt, he was getting voted to go to the All-Star.
Well, that's because
Right.
China voted for him.
I think that doesn't. Do I think Do I think anybody on the Celtics deserved to be voted to the All-Star game? No. Did anybody really jump out at you during this first half?
Nope.
Paul Pierce. We
no.
go back to Paul Pierce.
Well,
Paul
Pierce
Pierce
was
was
all right.
at first. Paul Pierce.
But we were just
Pierce
talking
was
about
on
it
the
2
edge.
weeks. We were
He's
talking
a
about it for
reservist,
2
so.
weeks, how this offense had to move through Paul Pierce.
Yep.
And all of a sudden,
And there's been
he's
no
a
offense.
non-factor. Well, I think that just shows the weakness of the Boston Celtics.
You know what? You know what really also shows a weakness of the Boston Celtics? The fact that Kevin Garnett stands around the three-point line looking to take 25-foot jumpers and not go to the basket or post up or be at the hoop, if you haven't noticed that. His game's outside now more than it ever has been, and that's because of his inability to post up and play and have a post presence.
Well, we can sit here and talk about what's wrong all we want, but let's move to the teams that are actually having some success in the NBA. Now, we see Oklahoma City, like you said, have a chance to completely put a stomping on the Boston Celtics last night, but let up on the gas a little bit. Are they going to be the real deal when it comes to a 7-game series? I mean, and you even want to fast forward to the NBA Finals if they make it there against a team like the Heat or the Bulls. Do they have enough firepower to win a title? Team 1, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they have the power to go to the NBA Finals. They have Westbrook and Durant, and they're two great players. So,
But
Youth.
But as you said, Brett, Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant scoring a majority of the points is not going to fly
That's
in
not
the
going to fly
playoffs.
in the playoffs.
It's not. Do they have the depth that it takes to
See,
to
I
win
think
a
they
7-game series?
they have the depth. They just choose not to use the depth when Westbrook and Durant are scoring all these points.
All
It's
right.
great because they win in games.
So let me get this straight. Team 1, Brett is saying that Oklahoma City Thunder is the clear-cut favorite because they have the ability to flip the switch come playoff time to just kick it in gear as much as they want. Do you agree or disagree with this? Do they have that switch to just flip on when they
I
want?
think they do. I mean, what we saw last night was sort of a Celtic-ish from a couple of years ago where they would play down to the level of their competition.
Right.
They would basically not go at it 100%. I think it went full. Once again, if they went full steam last night, we would be talking about the Celtics getting basically
Annihilated.
destroyed. But they decided to, okay, we got this big lead, we can start to slow it down a bit.
Yeah.
They got off their game, and once in basketball, if you get off your game for a good 2 minutes, it takes probably about 5 to 7 minutes just to get back into
Yeah,
the
you're
rhythm.
It's such
telling
a
me if you're
streaky
up by
game, though.
30 in a basketball game, you're not
If
going to
you,
get
Of course.
if you're,
It's
if
a
you
streaky
fall off-
game,
Yeah,
though.
if you fall off the flow in the NBA, it's difficult to get back in because you give momentum back to the other team.
So, is there a clear-cut favorite then
I don't
between
know.
the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference?
The
Who's gonna-
Knicks acquired J.R. Smith.
You
this
love
past
that
week.
move.
I absolutely love that move because I was liking the Knicks a lot over the past few weeks. Jeremy Lin seems to. Turnovers have gone down in the past few games. I will mention that. It's still a problem, but he has seemed to found his niche. Carmelo's back. It's going to be interesting to see how they all mesh, and also with J.R. Smith now, that gives them extreme depth on their bench. And it seems to me that they could be serious contenders come
yeah,
to the playoffs.
that was a great game against Dallas this past Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, they came back and they beat the Dallas Mavericks, and Jeremy Lin played great. That whole team kind of looked like they were together as a team.
So, you guys are factoring in the chemistry aspect for the New York Knicks. Please negotiate, David and Megan, the fact that the New York Knicks, can they win, or are there other teams better than the Knicks that are going to make more of a run to the finals than them? Because I would like to believe that the Knicks are going to be a one-and-done type team. I believe that they will get there, but I don't believe they're going to have that much of an impact.
Well, I mean, the Eastern Conference is, the talent level in the Eastern Conference is really not that good. I mean, we're talking about how bad the Celtics are playing. They're still in the playoffs and a pretty sizable margin in the playoffs, even though they're the AFC. They're a good 4 games up right now. And so you're looking at, can the Knicks go to Eastern Conference Finals? Let's put it there. I'm not going to say NBA Finals right now because I still think it's going to go through Miami or Chicago. So can the Knicks beat Miami or Chicago? No.
Well,
No,
you got to
no.
think with Amari Stoudemire, Carmelo Anthony, Jeremy Lin, J.R. Smith. If they can all figure out their roles and their purpose on that team, and they can mesh, that can be a dangerous team. You know how
Yeah,
Amari
but
and
they're-
Carmelo can be.
Besides that, their bench isn't. I mean, the Celtics bench is better than the New York Knicks bench at the moment. So we're talking about their starting 5 right now being good, but when we were just saying it's the bench that really will bring you to success in this league. So right now, I just don't believe that their bench can do it right now. I mean, you look at the Knicks. Yeah, sure, they beat Dallas. Dallas is not the same Dallas team they had last year. They lost Tyson Chandler to the offseason to the Knicks.
Right.
That was a big
and you
key.
got to think that can be huge.
To the Mavericks' defensive prowess that they had last year. And then they beat the Lakers, who the Lakers have issues on the road to begin with. Yeah, they beat the Celtics at home, but they're 5-13 on the road at the moment.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Team 1, or Team 2 rather, Team 1 has the New York Knicks going to the NBA Finals.
I didn't
Is
say
that
I
right?
didn't- No, I
Who
didn't
do you
say
have
that.
going to the NBA
I have
Finals?
Miami
to
Heat going to the
imply
NBA Finals.
Miami Heat. Do we
Yes.
have a little discrepancy between team members here? He has the Miami Heat. What are you thinking, Brett?
I think the Miami Heat are a great team, but I also think the Chicago
back
Bulls
it
are a
up
great
here.
team. And I think in a series, I would love to see that series because there's both some youth to both those teams.
What
but some
makes them
veterans.
winners? What makes them contenders, and what makes them winners?
The players.
Either one of the teams. You could say the players, but what makes them better than the Celtics? The Celtics are 15-17, and teams like
What
the
makes it
Bulls
better-
only have 8
the
losses.
The youth.
The youth and the health.
Health, youth,
Yep, and the younger
youth,
players.
players, ability to perform. Kevin Garnett is going to get bullied by Carlos Boozer if that
Really?
ever came into a series. I hate to say it, but Kevin Garnett, he can't even play in the post. Boozer's not even going to have a chance to bully him because Garnett's going to be out shooting three-pointers, not rebounding the ball.
Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls. What do you guys have to say about this?
Well, I think it's going to go between Miami. We're going to have a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference between
Right.
the Bulls and Miami. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind on this. I don't think Orlando can do it. We saw what they did versus the Celtics, and it wasn't that good. And they haven't really recovered that well against right now. The Hawks aren't doing it. The Pacers basically were having their issues. So, I mean, right now the class of the field in the Eastern Conference is the Bulls and the Heat. I can totally see a Thunder Miami Heat battle in the finals, which would be a very good finals to watch.
I think the Eastern Conference right now is pretty lopsided because I think that everybody is as good as some teams may be in the future or could be becoming to be. Everybody's very far below the Bulls and the Heat, and I think that the lopsidedness is just everybody's playing to lose to either the Heat or the Bulls at this point.
I mean, the Western Conference is yards in front right now.
Meg, how do you feel about the OKC MIA NBA final? Do you see now? We've made light of the fact that the Eastern Conference is weaker,
Yeah.
but think about the strength of both conferences. What conference wins the NBA Finals? If you take the best from each conference, which you probably will when it comes to the Heat and Bulls, there's not really any surprise teams that are really looking to come through. But do you take the strength of the West or the strength of the East to come through in the NBA Finals?
I personally think the strength of the East will come through, but at the same time, I know, David, you say the West. But, David, just talk. But no.
No, go on.
No, I just know you're disagreeing with me, so.
Well, we're going to have to deduct a point over here because a lack of team consistency. You guys, what do you have to say? You take the best of the West or the beast of the East?
I think it'll be a Thunder Heat final, and I think the Thunder being slightly younger and maybe slightly more potent than the Heat with Westbrook and Durant, because let's face it, Durant and Westbrook are more potent right now than Wade and James. The numbers
You
show
would
it.
argue that, really? Yeah.
The numbers show that.
Well, you also got to look at how each game is really played from the playoff scenario to a regular season scenario. The stars are going to get the calls in the regular season. That's a given. Like, you can go breathe
Right,
on LeBron,
exactly.
you're going to get a foul called against you.
Exactly.
In the playoffs, as we've seen, the refs tend to start to swallow the whistles, and that they don't start calling those calls anymore. And that's really what affects LeBron a lot, is that when he stops getting that call, he gets frustrated. And when he gets frustrated, he starts
He
forcing shots.
He becomes a non-team oriented.
Yeah,
player.
he becomes.
And
That's what happened last
that's
year.
what kills the Heat
Yep.
when LeBron James starts taking
That's
shots
what
missing
happened last
and-
year.
Yeah.
He stopped
Correct.
getting his calls versus the Mavericks. And guess what? He stopped hitting shots in the fourth quarter. And then when we started making fun of LeBron for being this guy who can play the first 3 quarters, and then once it gets down to game time, he goes hides in corner.
Right.
So I mean, and then you see Dirk basically being the closer of the NBA last year, and that big discrepancy between them.
That's how Miami lost that game.
Basically, it comes down to, during the regular season, the Heat offense runs through LeBron James when he's getting calls, driving to the hoop. But who does the offense run through in the postseason when there's no calls? You see how that worked last year when LeBron
Absolutely.
James started to simmer down and not get the calls and not be as much as a factor. The Heat kind of fizzled out almost, as you can say.
You can look at the Heat and say Dwayne Wade is the legitimate closer of that Miami Heat team.
And a very good one
LeBron
at that.
tries to. You can just look at it. Wade, 1 ring. LeBron, 2 finals appearances and both losses to the Spurs
Right.
and to the Mavericks. So, I mean, when you look at it, from what I can see, even though Kevin Durant hasn't been to that stage yet, I can see Kevin Durant being that player saying, I want the ball at the end and making those shots.
Well, with that said, we got to wrap it up here. I apologize, Team 1. But we are in a deadlock tie going into round 2. And we're going to open up a little bit with the NFL free agent wire and spice things up a little bit here. And we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go to round 2. Make sure you stay tuned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Negotiators, and we welcome you back to a deadlock tie. Team 1 to my right and Team 2 to my left, both at 5 apiece. Now we're going to hit another stepping stone in the sports world. Yes, David, we're going back to the NFL.
Yay.
A few weeks ago, we merely touched upon the subject simply because free agency wasn't until 4 or 5 weeks away. Now, with free agency and the combine on the horizon, a lot of moves are becoming more imminent and more intriguing. So let's talk about it, quite frankly.
Yep.
Now, we're going to start off with you guys over here in Team 2. We've already had several reports coming out, say, from the Dallas Cowboys about Keith Brooking and Brady James moving on. With moves like this happening, you see, we'll start with the Patriots. What moves can the Patriots make to bolster their team in general and maybe take them to the next level, which would be winning the Super Bowl? Who do you see? Who is your number one free agent contender for this team to make a splash?
Well, I mean, right now, looking at the Patriots as a whole, their offense was very good last year. I mean, it was, but here's the thing, it was mainly through your tight ends and Wes Welker.
Well, if you
I mean,
got
first
them,
of all,
use them, no?
Here's the thing, the Patriots need to do one thing first, is to re-sign Wes Welker. I mean, either give him the franchise tag or give him a long multi-year deal. I mean, he's really he's not really, if Gronkowski's the guy who you go through your offense with, he's really the cog that really brings this offense together. I mean, you can even go one step further. Brandon Lloyd's out there right now, and Brandon Lloyd has come out publicly to say, wherever Josh McDaniels goes, I will follow. So there's a chance you could bring Lloyd in. He could be that deep threat to open up Gronkowski, Morrow, Hernandez, or even Wes Welker. But you need to look at also on the defense. You need to bring in DB, someone who can.
Anybody
really
that sticks out to you in particular?
Not really. I mean, there's no Asamoah out there right now that you can say. Okay,
Asamoah disappointed. Quite
he
frankly.
is disappointed, but there's no high-profile DB out there that you can say he can come here and make an immediate impact on this defense.
So what areas need to be addressed?
I think you need another pass rusher, definitely. A legitimate pass rusher besides Will Fork, definitely. A defensive back, like he said. I think the Patriots' main focus should be on their defense. And should be on their defense. And but right now, it seems most likely that what they will receive is a deep threat in Brandon Lloyd because he wants to be with Josh McDaniels and who is now with the Patriots. So,
well, with that being said, there were many. We'll talk about Mike Wallace. Of all wide receivers in the entire league, Mike Wallace. He didn't actually mention the teams, a.k.a. the Patriots and 49ers, but in a report asked by a member of the media if he would, in fact, sign with the Niners or the Patriots, said, of course, I want to go to a contender. And the Steelers really feel like they're losing Mike Wallace this offseason. What are the possibilities that we get a guy like Mike Wallace? We'll start with you guys. What are the possibilities of Mike Wallace being a New England Patriot? Meg, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I really don't know, so you can probably ask David on that one.
Well, unfortunately right now, with the salary cap the way it is, you need to really see if you can fit in here money-wise, especially if you're going to pick up Wes Welker. So, I mean, before you go after Mike Wallace, I would say try to fill your gaps before doing that. Like, try to get your defense a little better. Get that extra pass rusher in. I mean, Andre Carter has said he will be willing to come back to the Patriots.
He needs to come back.
But will he be that force again?
yeah,
that's the question.
Was that a fluke? Was that a
Honestly, McLevin, what do you have to say about this?
I think the Patriots, need some help on defense, but I also think they need another deep threat. I know they got Deion Branch, and but Ocho Cinco didn't really do anything this year.
But let's look at it this way. All right, this is not Bill O'Brien's offense anymore. This is not the put up 34 points a game with the dink and dunk. Think about Josh McDaniels. And you want to know what? In 07, they lit it up. But even in 06, we saw passes to Rashae Caldwell, passes to Doug Gabriel down the field, Josh McDaniels is that kind of guy, but he's also that kind of guy that's going to try to run the ball. All right? Does this offense dynamically change with Josh McDaniels?
I don't think so, because I think they have to work with what they have. And I don't think Deion Branch is any type of a threat at all at any point, deep, short, middle.
Really? So
he's past. He's done. He's past.
Really?
He's past.
That
his
is a
effectiveness.
bold statement right here.
And I don't know, and Mike Wallace, I don't know how well Mike Wallace fits in with the Patriots, because he's a number one wide receiver, and he's going to be behind Hernandez, Gronkowski, Welker.
And
How
look
does
out
that
for
work
Chad
out?
Johnson.
No, Chad
Look
Johnson.
out for
Just
Chad
because he changed his
Johnson.
name
Yeah,
back.
no,
doesn't
no,
mean
wait,
he's
wait,
gonna
wait,
win.
wait.
Give him a
I
year in
know-
the system,
Paul,
and
Paul,
he
I
will
know
be
you have an
back.
extreme
Yeah, I
man
believe
crush
that,
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah.
on Chad Johnson,
Paul.
but here's the thing: he had issues running the simplest routes in Bill O'Brien's system.
I don't think it's an issue
standout
of
moment
running
was
the routes.
he made this big catch, like in week 3, and he steps out of bounds after making the catch.
oh, and the
After
and the
open,
touchdown
he had
is
open. He
Broncos.
dropped the touchdown against the Buffalo Bills in week 2. He dropped. It was right there, and he dropped it.
We have witnessed firsthand what this New England Patriots team is capable of. If you're going to take away Welker, we'll give you Gronk. If you're going to take away Gronk, we'll give you Hernandez.
But
if you
Chad
take
Johnson
away everybody,
failed.
if you take away everybody, we're going to give you somebody else.
If
Here's
you
the
take away
thing.
everybody, Chad Johnson still isn't going to get
No,
it.
It's a
it's not.
complex.
Danny Woodhead.
It's a complex scheme. Okay. Now you want to make light of Randy Moss coming in and lighting it up right away. Well, guess what? Chad Ochocinco. I'm sorry,
He
he
didn't
did
do
not
anything.
have an off season.
He didn't
didn't
do
have an
anything.
off season. Give him an off season with Josh McDaniels, who
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If Josh McDaniels can bring out the best in Brandon Lloyd, who hadn't hit over 40 catches in a season before coming to the Broncos, I think he can get something
Listen,
out of Chad
Brandon
Johnson.
Lloyd's young. Chad Johnson is.
Chad Johnson's going to be 38 this year.
38.
Yeah, he's that old. I was shocked when
His-
I saw that.
His effectiveness from this year, not only is it not going to get any better, it may get worse with age and
He
with
can
him
run
not
the
being.
routes.
That's great.
did it last year.
That's great. Can he catch the ball? No. Did they throw it to him? No.
I
can
think
run
no.
routes.
Here's
He
the
can't.
insult. Here's the
Not as
insult
sharp as that.
to Chad Johnson in the Super Bowl. His little bet thing that Las Vegas likes to do. His over under was 0.5, a half a catch. If he made more than a catch, and you bet over, you won money.
Which he did.
He did, but that
And
really
I remember
is a
Brady
statement.
specifically saying on the sideline after that one
This is
catch,
why we got you.
"This is why we got you."
Yeah.
This is.
He
But
is
they
there to
lost
be
the Super
They-
Bowl,
they-
so it
they-
doesn't
they-
matter.
there to
They
be an
talk about-
explosive player.
They
Right.
talk about after the game. They talked about how making that one catch was kind of like a statement for Chad Johnson. It was kind of like he proved the point. He was like, "Oh, my job's done here." It was kind of like, "Oh, caught a pass. My job's done." Let me
Where,
sit on the
where did he go
sideline."
for the rest of the game?
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like a job well done for him as far as he was concerned.
They made him
The
feel
one
good
catch.
because he finally made the Super Bowl. He got a catch in the Super Bowl, and then he was done. I mean, they had more trust in throwing the Gronk on one leg than they did the Chad Johnson.
What do you have to
When
say?
When Gronk got hurt in the AFC Championship game, everyone was saying, is Ochocinco going to have the game of his life because
He
had.
doesn't know the offense.
I know, but everybody was saying
He
is
should
gonna
though.
have the
He
game
had an
of his
entire
life
year.
in the
When
Super Bowl.
when they needed an extra receiver out there, was it Johnson? No, it was Danny Woodhead who they had out there over Chad Johnson.
But you got to think about the matchups.
Danny Woodhead.
I understand, but what I'm trying to say is, Chad Johnson. Say whatever you want about his age. If you want to play the Mike Noel card, say whatever you want about his age. However, I'm telling you right now, and you're hearing it first on the Negotiators from the host himself, Chad Johnson gets an
16
offseason-
catches this year?
Gets an off season under his belt. He will be a legitimate
because he
weapon
said-
for Tom Brady.
Because he said he's like, oh, what's with Carson Palmer? Because he made a comparison to Carson Palmer, and he said, why is Brady acting this way? I went to the Carson Palmer was so relaxed, and Brady's this so uptight. And Deion Branch said, well, that's how Brady is when it's playoff time.
Laser focus, laser
He's-
intensity. So he has to learn the ropes
Right.
a little bit. But I don't think it took Randy Moss that long to learn the ropes, and he's been on losing teams all of his career. But what
Right.
it comes down to is this team did not hesitate to cut Albert Hainsworth immediately when he wasn't doing the job. They held on to Chad.
Because who else were they going to use?
For
That's
a
the thing.
reason.
Matthew Slater. I mean, Chad Johnson maybe has a little edge on Matthew Slater, who's the special teams captain. I mean, great guy, special teams captain, awful football player. But
He led the team
Well,
in
here's the-
special teams
here's the
tackles in
thing.
general.
Bill Belichick likes Chad Johnson, and they're pretty good friends off the field.
You don't think Bill Belichick liked Richard Seymour?
No.
You don't think he liked
But they-
No,
Tyler?
I actually don't.
don't think
I
he liked
actually
Lawyer
think
Malloy?
He didn't like
No,
Richard Seymour.
is a very unlikable guy.
I think Bill Belichick did not like Richard Seymour. That's how.
You don't think Bill Belichick liked Deion Branch when he shipped him out to Washington?
No. He didn't ship out to Washington. Deion Branch went to Washington because he got money.
There was a dispute.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
Either way, if you like the guy, you keep him around.
Well, I mean, how much was Chad Johnson making this year?
They restructured his contract
Yeah,
to
not
keep
a
him
lot.
here for 3 years.
But
'Cause
here's
they
the
know
thing,
the talent that he has.
But Deion Branch wasn't willing to restructure his contract, and he's come out and said, "I made a mistake in restructuring my contract, and I went to go live in Seattle where it rains
Well, with that
90%
said,
of the year."
it seems as though most of this conversation that we just had, we spent most of the time basically arguing on whether or not the Patriots already have all the weapons that they need to succeed.
Chad Johnson will not be in the NFL next year.
When we come back here in the
14
Negotiators
catches.
in the final round, what do the Patriots do in the NFL draft? And what are they going to do? What position do they need to address the most on defense to help put them over the top and win Super Bowl 47? When we come back, here are the Negotiators on the Rainham channel. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here in the final round of the Negotiators. Now, in this round, we will determine who will ultimately win and who will ultimately get the boot. So we start here, 0-0, clean slate. It was a tie going into this round. Ladies and gentlemen, we start off. A nice little segue. We're going to touch lightly upon, as we did with free agency a couple weeks ago, we're going to touch lightly upon the main area of concern for the Patriots. You know what? They have number 27 and number 31 in this draft. Does Bill Belichick actually use these picks this time to address a need, or does he trade them once again, as he did the potential Mark Ingram pick last year? Start with you guys.
I think you have to use the picks this year because you really have to do something about that 31st ranked
You got
defense.
to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
You got to the
You
Super
got a
Bowl. That
prolific
speaks
offense
volumes.
and a defense who kind of came around in the. You think should they have been in the Super Bowl though with that drop pass to Lee Evans that he maybe should have hung on to? The missed field goal by
It's about the entire game up to that point. They had a chance to put it away, and you could say that about either team. The Giants, the eventual Super Bowl winners, should they have even been in that game with Kyle Williams doing what he did? I mean, what it comes down to is, like I asked Team 1 over here, do the Patriots use 27 and 31, or do they trade one or the other?
They have to, honestly, and it's not even that because because they need to, because it's a first-round pick. It's because they've gotten to basically the notion that they're going to draft down everything. They're going to be basically trading these picks for like 5 thirds and a fourth in there. But what was interesting, though, was that Bob Kraft actually came out and addressed it, saying, we have 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds, and I fully intend to use those picks. So,
I think he was hinting at.
I think Bob Kraft is getting a little tired of the trading down.
Losing. How about
losing.
tired of the losing?
Not even that, just having mediocre talent get picked in the draft and basically having to use that.
I think the trading down has finally caught up to them on the defense, and the fact that if they keep doing the trading down, the defense will just get worse. The offense,
Well,
they need to use.
You think
the
about
picks that
when
they
they
have.
used the first round pick, they got Will Fork, Mayo, and McCourty.
They
and
need
that's
to
a pretty
use
good
them.
deal.
They need to use
But then
them.
again, some of their picks first round picks haven't worked out either.
I think that's a very good point because we make light of Bill Belichick's genius when it comes to draft. I think the genius lies within his ability to trade and get more picks and acquire talent. I don't think the ability to draft lies within actually getting the talent in the draft. I think there's a significant issue that the Patriots have with draft. When they've drafted a good piece, it's been a good piece, and it's been a good piece for a long time, a.k.a. Logan Mankins, a.k.a. Dan Copen, Tom Brady, all those guys. But when they miss,
they miss big.
They miss
Yeah,
big.
they do.
But you're gonna think in every sport there's gonna be a bust for a first round draft pick.
Yeah,
like
but
Durant and Odin. Odin hasn't played more than 25 games in a season in his 5-year career now. Look at Durant. Look at what Durant's doing.
But with the Patriots, it's really been showing because of the fact they do trade down and trade these picks away.
Right.
But
They're saying, where are they
when you look at they're setting the stage on low end picks. You just have to look at Tom Brady and see that right there. But it's their high end drafting that's really hurt them. I mean, some of these picks really have been huge busts.
But look at where they got Hernandez and Gronkowski.
But you got to think of it. Yeah, they can trade down and maybe they can build up a middle round draft pick to be a great player, but they need help on that defense now,
Yeah,
they need to take somebody who's
they need
ready
like
to
a
step in
cornerback.
right
Well,
now.
here's another thing. I think that's a real big factor is that now they got the scaled rookie salary wages on where you're
Right.
drafted. And that we could talk about, it was in place last year. No, it wasn't in place last year. When they drafted, they didn't have this in place. They didn't even know if they're going to get this in place. They were still in the lockout. So this is really going to be the first year in which teams will be picking, knowing about this rookie wage scale.
Right.
So, I mean, it's going to be less of the Patriots being stingy on the money and picking the lower picks so that they can pay them less. They're going to know how much they're going to be paying these players where they pick them.
With Rob Kraft coming out and saying that, though, do we get the sense that, and as you think about it more, now is the time. You got to win now. And you know what? Do you even get the sense that one Super Bowl isn't going to be good enough? Do you get the sense that with Rob Kraft coming out and saying something like that, uncharacteristic of what he usually does, is the time for the Patriots now, and is it running out similar to the Celtics, or are they built to win for many
I think they're
years?
built to win for years, but
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
Kraft saw the defense this year and saw that might have been a result of down playing in the draft, like down.
Right.
Yeah, like it's just a result of like the bad, not bad drafting, but the fact that you expect the Patriots to trade down in the draft now. And maybe now is the time where they need somebody big on the defense, ready to step in like McCourty did. I think they need that again this season. I think they need to draft somebody who's going to be able to step in immediately and make a difference.
You think that happens in the first round? It could happen in any round.
It could happen in any round, but I think what's really the main factor is that these are lower first-round picks. So, in all essence, you're basically at the transition point between someone who is who can be a high second-round pick and drafted ahead based on need or based on want. It's not going to be like the top 10 pick where you're basically picking the best player no matter what your need is. You're picking based on what you need now. So most likely they'll probably be picking someone off the defense. I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Belichick goes out and uses both picks as 2 DBs or 2 defensive linemen. It won't be
DBs is
surprised if these are the
risky
same
business.
players.
Risky business.
But
in
so
a
is-
complex
so
scheme.
is-
You need
so is
versatile
the-
players.
D lineman.
You think about it. If you have a healthy Razai Dowling, that does wonders for this team. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe a Sterling Moore doesn't emerge, but a healthy Razai Dowling, essentially a first-round pick. You know, the first pick of the second round. But I think there's a lot of upside to this team that they already have in place.
The only set in stone position where you draft in the NFL draft is an offensive lineman. You're basically knowing what you're going to get.
Right,
Offensive linemen are
exactly.
typically,
Right.
statistically, the smartest players that go in the draft. Then they're going to know the playbook in and out by the time they
Right.
hit camp.
It's
after
pretty
the
cut.
draft.
Exactly.
It's pretty cut and dry. You know what you're getting. It's
Defensive
those other
backs,
ones.
That's like you said, a risky business because like look at McCourty, late first-round pick, came out to be great.
And then,
but you know how that can turn. You know how it could be. You could be a
McCourty
nobody
was
at that
a
pick,
shell of
too.
himself this year from what he was last year.
It could be it could be a McCourty or it could be a bust at the same pick. It all depends.
Right. Well, with that said, I mean, great points brought up here by the negotiators. We're going to head into our final moments, our final minutes, and we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about in many weeks, and that is the NHL. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, Boston sports in some areas may be on the decline, but we're still on the rise in other sports. Or are we, David and Megan? Are the Boston Bruins a contender like we once thought they were? What do you guys think?
No.
Really?
Well, yes and no. They have their times where they can be good, but then they have their times when they're not, especially with Tuca.
Isn't that like that with any team?
Yeah, but Tuca, like, it's just my personal opinion. Tuca is not bringing his A game. It's Thomas. And everyone just goes on and says Thomas sucks. I'm sorry. But Tuca is the worst to me.
Really?
And they have, their coach sometimes calls out things that they say, and it's just not how it's supposed to be. What do you think?
So now what it comes down to is you're having Claude Julien calling out players when he shouldn't be, and Tim Thomas being a snob. What is Meg says this team is not going to be a contender.
I think I'm saying it can be a contender, but it has its rough patches right now.
What do you think, David?
I think they're fine.
Really?
To be perfectly honest, I mean, let's look at it. This team, on paper, when everyone's healthy, they have probably the most depth out of all 4 lines, and they showed that last year during the playoffs.
I agree.
Right now, you're missing Horton, a top line forward. You're
Yep.
missing Peverly, who basically was the replacement to Horton. Luckily, Peverly back by the playoffs. I don't know about Horton yet. Concussions are the scary thing. Sidney Crosby is
man,
all you have to
that's a
throw
mess.
out there. But when you look at all teams go through these rough areas, the Detroit Red Wings, who are basically the best team in the league, they've got the home winning record. They lost 7 in a row at the beginning of the season. So I mean, teams will go through this rough period. It's not because Tim Thomas didn't go to the White House. I know everyone wants to make that story. I'm pretty sure Tuukka Rask or Tim Thomas isn't giving up goals because, oh, geez, this political thing is getting so bad. I don't think that's the case. Right now, the issue was before last night, they weren't scoring goals. They had 2 games between the Wild and the Rangers where they had over 40 shots on goal and didn't score a goal.
The Bruins, I think they are definitely contenders because they virtually have the same team they did last year when they won the Stanley Cup.
Right.
But
Are they as effective?
Are they the? I think they can be. I think they're not the team that won virtually a few months ago that walked on the ice and virtually won every game they played. I think they're the team you see now, win some, lose some. They're not going to win every game. Are they contenders? Absolutely. But are they a team you saw a few months ago? No. I think that was a fluke. I don't think they're. What did they win, like 15 games in a row, something like this, something crazy like that. They're not that team. They're a good team, but they're not that team that you saw. And people are kind of getting down on the Bruins now because they set such a high bar in those months that now they're playing normal.
They'll be perfectly.
They're fine.
They're fine.
But they're playing normal now, not out of their minds like they were the first few months.
McLovin, anything to add?
I think they are contenders in this. They have a
agree.
great team. Not the same as last year, but I think they'll be all right.
I agree. I still think they're going to be contenders no matter what. They have an excellent chance of winning the Stanley Cup again this year.
Right now, if they make the trade deadline.